Welcome to Bitcoin Escape Plan. We've got an exciting video for you today. You may have noticed the massive green candle on the Bitcoin chart. And in today's video, we're going to go over the key levels that will either invalidate or allow this trend to continue to the upside. Later on in the video, we will go over the higher time frame context so we understand where the most likely support and resistance levels are going to form. And then at the very end of the video, I will go over my perpetual trade, which I was sitting in loss for 3 weeks and am now almost 100% in profit. Really important. We'll talk about that at the end of the video. If you are new to the channel, then head over to bitcoinescapeplan.com. You can subscribe there. Every Monday, I release an in-depth newsletter that goes over the key timeframes for all of the levels that matter and a few other gems right over there, bitcoinescapeplan.com. You can subscribe, as well as I release videos here on YouTube every Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. 4-hour chart. Let's get into it. For Bitcoin, what's going on at the moment? So like we talked about in Wednesday's video, this is over here. What we were waiting for was confirmation of 74.5K, that Fibonacci pivot. Obviously, you already know we have behaved strong after that, after we did have a 4-hour SMA retest, which we did talk about in that video. And then as you can see here, we had a significant period of compression. Now, what that means, and someone had reached out to me about this and asked, should I short this? Should I short this? And I told them, you know what? I would be taking a scalp there potentially, but I do think we have more pressure to the upside. And then obviously only a few hours after that phone call, it did shoot right up, exactly like I thought it was going to. So what are the levels that actually told me that that was going to happen? Now, if you've been following the channel for any period of time, you know I talk about 69K and 73.8K quite a bit. So we just hit over here. We hit 76.1K recently before bouncing off. And then obviously we have now broken back above that. And that is the other key level that we needed to see strength at initially. I'm going to go over this more on a little bit later on in the video because it's just easier to show on the weekly time frame. But super important, do not forget that level, 76.1, 76.2. That is going to be very crucial in the next 2 weeks. And do subscribe because things are going to change. On April 24th, I'm going to be singing a completely different tune than I have been. So you're not going to want to miss that trend change. And what I see happening at the chart at that time is going to really tell us what's going on with the price and everything like that. So in the short term, we had strong reaction to the 4-hour SMA. As you can see, in general, the 4-hour SMA has been going up pretty much the whole month of April so far. We've had a pretty steady uptrend during that time period, which is what we anticipated happening. Now, the anchored VWAP has changed. You can go over right here and look up my courses if you want for me to explain that in more detail. This is the Elder VWAP. This is the one that is drawn from 2011 on my chart. It randomly moved the other night. I have no control over this. It just randomly decided to move itself. I have deleted it and reset it to where I normally have it. It's still, this is what it wants to tell me. So that I believe is the middle band. This I believe is that should be the, oh no, sorry. That is the middle band of the Elder VWAP. This is the bottom band of the downtrend anchored VWAP, which is drawn from the 126 all-time high. Same as this red trend line here. Now I know there's a lot going on this chart, but the important thing is that while we are above this bottom band right here of the downtrend anchored VWAP, it pushes us towards the middle band of the downtrend anchored VWAP. The downtrend anchored VWAP middle band is currently at about 83.5K. Now again, with the context of the Elder VWAP, which that's the one that is showing us an uptrend, this other one is showing us a downtrend. So that band is all the way down here at 60K. Indicating a decent amount of strength because it was significantly lower than that for a long time. So the fact that it has jumped up by that much is not trivial and is something to pay attention to on the chart, and that will inform what I'm talking about later in the higher time frames. So at the moment, as long as we are above those 2 points of confluence, then we have room to continue running. Now, I do think that we are probably going to hit a little bit of turbulence around 80K And it's hard for me to believe that we're going to go higher than 83 to 86K. I've been talking about that literally since January or February. Like I have essentially been saying the same thing in every video 4 days a week. Like that's what I believe is going to happen. That's what has been happening. You know, you can check me in the comments below, but I really haven't changed my story very much. This is exactly what I have been thinking is going to happen since February, and I've been documenting it every week here and on Threads, even though I've been too lazy to post Threads recently. Anyways, that's not the point. So uptrend at the moment still looks very strong. What are the levels where we're going to see resistance? Well, as I said, 80.2 is going to be important, as well as 83.5K are going to be important. But what actually tells us more clearly is this guy over here. So I've been talking about this for like every video, essentially, since January, possibly December of last year. You know, I've been talking about this for a long time. Typically speaking, when we have a retest of the weekly SMA during a bear market year, there's only one of two things that happens. Either we continue above it for a short period of time and then lose it, or we never touch it in the first place. So we are in category 1 at the moment until proven otherwise. So what is our evidence for this? Well, let's go over to 2022. And if we look at 2022, this is a very similar movement. This is into the end of March instead of the end of April. But what do we have? We have 3 weeks where we are quote unquote above the weekly SMA before giving it up and heading back to the downside. What about 2018? What does 2018 tell us? Well, 2018 has pretty much the same exact movement that we are seeing now, a rise into April, towards the end of April, that resulted in a failure of the weekly SMA that dragged us down all the way into June. Then we had one lower high in July, and then we continued downward. What does 2014 tell us? 2014, now very different in terms of where the weekly SMA was, but essentially the same story. A rise into April that resulted in a failure. We did get a large rise into May in that particular instance, but same exact story. We had, in this instance, we had several weeks above the weekly SMA. However, kind of not relevant. You know, we're talking about this. The price of Bitcoin at this time was $604. So a little bit different than the mechanisms that we have to deal with today, unfortunately. Wish it was still $604. Oh my God. But we were above the weekly SMA for a longer period of time then. But what ended up happening? We still broke to the downside. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we need to assume is going to happen. All right? I know you probably follow a bunch of people who say the 4-hour cycle is dead, or they said that last year and they don't say it anymore. I've even seen, there's a channel that I respect very deeply, like they're very successful traders. I learned a lot of my shit from them. And he's talking about how he thinks price can potentially go up to 100. And I do not see that. Like I just don't. I understand that technically speaking it could, but to me, I don't really see that reflected in the global uncertainty, the results around the Clarity Act, and like stablecoins not having yield issuance, them not being FDIC insured, even though, you know, the Federal Reserve is directly incentivizing the banks to pump these to their customers as much as they want. So to me, I just think it's more likely what is going to happen is these are all the ETF buyers in 2024. Those people currently have not had to experience loss yet. They have not had to experience loss. So this cycle is not over until those people have experienced significant loss, period. You know, that's where a bulk of the volume is sitting at the moment, is between about 57K and about 72K. You know, if we zoom in over here, you can see we're very thin between about 72K to about 86K, super thin there, which means that there are no living, breathing human beings on the other side of the buy and sell button that have strong emotions about this region. There are people above here that have strong emotions about this region, that the closer that the price gets to those levels, some of them are going to think, oh shit, maybe I should sell some of this Bitcoin stuff. It's only 5% in loss now, instead of I've been sitting 30 or 40% in loss for a while now. That is the full part of the cycle that we need to experience, is those people All those people who bought it in their retirement account, those people who bought MSTR and Coinbase instead of buying Bitcoin itself, all of those people still have to have their lunch money taken by the bully, period. Otherwise, it's not a real cycle. And, we're seeing a dramatic paradigm shift, which is possible. It is possible. I don't want to completely discount that it's not possible. It is possible. This March 2024 peak of 73.8K was the first time in history that we saw a new all-time high early on in the halving year. We've never seen that before. So it is possible. Miracles can happen for Bitcoin. Sometimes things change, but that was a liquidity-driven event. So for me, I need to see the liquidity return to the market in order for such a thing to be true. We are currently not seeing that. We've seen just as much sell pressure as we have buy pressure, technically more sell pressure still at the moment. And we are slowly building buying pressure, but I don't think it's going to be significant enough to break through these key levels here. So I've been talking about this weekly SMA retest for I don't even know how many videos now, probably like 50 videos. And what has happened is we have broken through 76.2K. Now remember, we've been in this region since February. I talk about this all the time. We wanted to see this week was a close above 70.3K because that puts more pressure towards 76.2. That has happened exactly as I said it would happen. And now what we are seeing at the moment is 76.2K is likely going to form as support right now. We are testing the weekly SMA. As you can see, price has literally gone directly to it. It wicked slightly above it and has dropped back directly to it. So what the price is trying to figure out now is how far away from the weekly SMA can I go? Do I have the room? Do I have enough support here at 76.2K to continue higher? Or is this just an initial test that's going to result in a back test down to 76.2K. Obviously, we have until Sunday for a proper candle close, and I will go over that in Sunday's video. I'll give you the update. I'm going to go do parkour all day tomorrow, so I'm going to have a great day. But on Sunday, I will give the morning update whenever I do that video to see. It looks like at the moment this is pretty healthy. Even if we close a little bit below that, as long as we close above 76.2K, I don't see how you can interpret this as anything other than bullish. Like it just looks strong for the first time since like January, basically December. Like it looks pretty good right now. So there's not really any reason to assume otherwise until something dramatic happens on the chart. So what are those other support levels that we need to look at? Well, like I said, 73.8K is really important. That's that March 2024 all-time high. So I do think that it is going to be a level that the chart wants confirmation of. We currently don't need it. We're well above that. So there's not really any reason to assume that we're magically going to retest it at the moment. And it's more likely that we are going to continue to play out this region in here until we have another retest of this downtrend, or uptrend rather, trend line that was drawn from the 59.9K lows over here in February. So essentially, this is the downtrend from the 126 all-time high. As you can see, we have finally broken it. We had a test last week that resulted in a failure. We have now broken way above it. So historically speaking, again, we have reason to believe that we're going to fail the weekly SMA. There is nothing preventing us from spending multiple weeks. I would say closer to 3 weeks. I don't think that we're going to see a 2014 situation where we have whatever that was, like 8 weeks above it. That's really hard for me to believe. The only way that would happen is, like I've talked about, I think this was in Wednesday's video or maybe Monday's video. The only possibility for that is if instead of seeing a lower high form in April that results in downside momentum into May and June, if we were to just continue to see this slowly creep back up towards 96K between now and July, and then July is again when that other lower high is formed. In that case, it would be a higher high compared to April. It is my baseline assumption that the high in April is going to be higher than the high in July. I don't know that, obviously, but that is my baseline assumption. Also, with the Strait of Hormuz and the Iran peace talks falling in and out, I believe that that is going to come to a head within like the next 10 days ish, roughly. So I really, like I've been saying, April 24th, April 26th, like somewhere in there is where we're going to have the price is just going to be in no man's land essentially. And we're either going to need a retest of this that results in strength and we continue to chop upward, or what I believe is more likely, we have a retest that results in failure and then it pushes down. And if it retests the red line on that descent, I do not think that it's going to build strength above it. I know you don't want to hear that. You just want to hear it's going up forever. Oh my God, Bitcoin's going back to 100K. You know, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm very sorry. I think that this 97.9K peak in January is the highest price that we're going to get in all of 2026. I know the least popular man in Bitcoin, Jacob Cormier TV over here. That's what I believe is going to happen, is that we are going to see weakness form after this reaction to the weekly SMA. Now, again, it could be a couple weeks of strength. You know, it could be the rest of April we're above that weekly SMA before we give it up and need to head back down towards the 64K pivot. I do believe that's what's going to happen. The only thing that would change that is a massive amount of liquidity. As far as I'm aware, the Clarity Act and the stablecoins do not fully go into effect until January of next year. Even if it fully passes by July, banks do not work that way. Banks don't magically turn on the money faucet. You know, they have to make all of their announcements of their partners. They have to spend a ton of money on marketing campaigns and sending you pieces of mail that you're never going to fucking read. That's how those companies do business. They want to continue doing it that way. So what is more likely to happen is that the news will be initially bullish, will have a higher low that will become a sell-off event. Again, the psychology of all of these individuals has to remain conviction as price is getting closer to their cost basis, instead of them thinking, oh, wow, you know what, gold's doing way better than Bitcoin, real estate's doing way better than Bitcoin, you know. You need all of those people who don't feel strongly enough to buy Bitcoin itself and instead are buying ETFs. You need all of those people to not panic as price gets closer to their cost basis. You need them to add aggressively instead of remove exposure. And again, that's just not how the 4-year cycle works. The 4-year cycle works when everybody is upset. The cops came, they ended the party, everybody's upset. They took all of our IDs. Like that's the reality. Is your mom's getting a phone call, you know? So over here, all of 2024, we still need to see that legitimately tested. We have only seen a minor test of that so far. Again, unless we've just seen a major paradigm shift and those days are done, you know. That's not really enough for me to say that the 4-year cycle is over. It's also not really enough for me to say that this is, you know, a 50% drop from the top is all that we're going to get for this entire bear market, you know. Like, it just doesn't seem likely to me, nor is it how rich people make money. Rich people make money off of making poor people panic and sell their positions so they can continue to buy it at a lower cost basis. That's how they make wealth. You know, they do not make wealth if the price only goes up forever. That does not allow them an opportunity to buy a massive amount and to influence the price. So until that changes, until rich people magically decide that they just want everybody to win, you know, which is delusional, some kindergarten fairy tale nonsense, that's not what's going to happen. What I believe is going to happen is we are going to see price rise as high as about 83K. You know, I've been talking about this since over here in December. That's what I can see being likely. And then we will probably start to see resistance form at that time, right in those levels. So this is the 2025 lows. Those candles were, looks like it closed at 104. Oh, I want this close, 82. So right in that region, again, that's what I would expect the price to want confirmation of as support or resistance. It is my belief that it is going to form that as resistance. Now, it is possible that it breaks a little bit higher. Where could it break higher to? So this is the monthly SMA right here. The monthly SMA is currently sitting at 90.8K. Now, historically speaking, the monthly SMA, when we lose it, we typically will spend a period of about 8 to 12 months where we are below it. So this was a slightly shorter period of time here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, where we are below before reclaiming it. And it is important to note, Donald J. Trump was the president during this time, so it's quite possible. I saw like a dude who used to be in the CIA or something like that describe the difference between socialists and oligarchs. And oligarchs, basically, what they thrive on is chaos. They want the markets to be uncertain because they're the ones controlling it. So there's a lot of volatility to both sides. You know, even if you were, and this is the March 2020 event, so we could not have really anticipated that. But even in this instance, you know, when price starts to recover into 2019, which again, mind you, it's the same exact thing that we're seeing. We're seeing a rise into April that will result in a sell-off in May with a lower high formed in July that results in a failure of the weekly and monthly SMA once again. Now again, in this instance, we had not broken the monthly SMA until the end of 2018. That is not the case for us. We broke it in November. We broke it a long time ago. So that's the only possibility, is that the chart is so far left translated that we're just going to magically get our bull run earlier, which I know is what a lot of people think is going to happen. And like I'm getting comments about that, like people asking like, aren't we going to get another bull run? Are alts going to rip because they didn't rip before? And for a number of reasons, I think that is delusional. When they tokenize assets and allow them to be traded 24/7 on the stock market, as well as they just removed the pattern day trader rule. This was crazy to me when I saw this the other day on the news. Typically speaking, when you're trading option contracts and stuff like that, you are only allowed, if you have less than $25,000 liquid in your account, you are only allowed to take 3-day trades over the course of the week. They claim that is so that you don't blow up your account and to protect you. That's bullshit. It is actually just to make it harder for you to make money when you don't have any money, essentially. For them to remove that right now, what that means is there's about to be a tremendous amount of volatility that they want to rinse everyone of. They want to rinse everybody. That's what's going on. It's not for your benefit. It's not so that the poor people can have more access to the markets. It's so that the people who do not understand can get rinsed by the people who do. That's it. Sorry, I'm a little bit intense in this video compared to my other videos because I just like, I don't want to see people get rinsed. I don't want to see people lose all their Bitcoin thinking that we're magically about to hit new all-time highs and it's going to be up and kumbaya forever. It's just going to continue to go up. It's never going to go down again. Like, ridiculous. That's just not how money functions, you know? So the best case scenario is we're on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That means by roughly July, if history is holding true to the shortest time frame where we've had a retest of the monthly SMA, that's when it would be. It would be in July. And as I said earlier, that would be that instance where we just continue to see a rise into July, potentially some chop again around the 76.2K pivot before we get that rise. And if that is the case and it is holding true to 2018, 2019, then it actually is more likely that it does stay above it for a long period of time. Now, me personally, I would assume that the price is going to struggle around here, 106.7 or 106.8. I talked about that so many times last year. That was a super important level. That's what I would assume would be like the actual highest I could see in this run before it needs to go back down. And again, in this instance, in 2018, 2019, we had roughly the same thing where price did fail for most of 2018. It did not start to recover until 2019. And again, take into context, this would be 2027 for us. That is theoretically when JP Morgan Chase, Citibank, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and everybody else that you want to do business with, they will have the full legal proceedings for their stablecoins will be in effect by January of next year. So some of them are going to be testing it during this time period where the price is going lower, but it will go into full effect. Like you'll be getting promotional emails or whatever from your bank saying, if you deposit X amount of dollars into stablecoins, we'll give you X amount of points or whatever the fuck. That's going to come hard in December, January, because they're going to be ramping up And banks typically think in years or decades. They do not think in days. Like we as human beings, we think in days. We think in 4-hour candles. That is not how major corporations think, dude. Like when Fidelity made the decision to allow their customers to only buy or sell Bitcoin and not custody it, that was for a reason. You know, when BlackRock decided to make the Bitcoin ETF after calling it a scam and like saying it was only for criminals and everything for a year, that was for a reason. They want you to be dumb enough to hold it with them instead of holding it yourself. That's what's happening right now. It does not benefit JP Morgan Chase if the price of Bitcoin magically starts rising before their customers have to flow in liquidity. It does not benefit them. That makes their customers pissy and angry because they lose out on, oh, well, you told me to get a bunch of stable coins, and I did, and I bought a bunch of Bitcoin, and then the Bitcoin dropped off a cliff. That's not going to have happy customers for JP Morgan Chase and Citibank. And therefore, I do not think that that is going to happen. I think that it is more likely that we, like I said, get a lower high form in April. We give it up in the month of May, we stabilize in June, we get one more lower high in July, which I would assume, if I'm just spitballing here, what I would assume is the lower high that we're about to see now, it is hard for me to believe it's going to be above about 86K. And again, the anchored VWAP tells us lower. It tells us 80K or 83.5K. The highest I can believe personally is about 86.5K. And then I do anticipate we're going to start to see pressure to the downside after that. And this is very simple. Like we'll know that by the end of April. That's why I keep saying in the titles of all the videos, like watch before April 24th or whatever. We will know. We'll know by the end of this month. Essentially, we'll have confirmation of whether that trend is going to continue or whether we need to start giving it back. And then that's all we're going to need to pay attention to. Is essentially the same thing I've been repeating is, are we above or below 70.3K? If we are below it, that puts pressure towards 64. If we're above it, it keeps pressure on 76.2K. But the longer that we start breaking down at that level, the more likely it is that we're going to need to retest 64K. Hopefully that all makes sense. I know that was a long ramble and a really intense ramble today. Like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Let's go over my perpetual trade. This is crazy, ladies and gentlemen. This is why I only want to look at the Bitcoin chart and why I don't really give a shit about, you know, trading the hot new thing or whatever. I entered a short over here and then panicked and flipped it long because I thought we were seeing this over here. I was wrong. I deserve to lose money on this trade. Do you understand? I deserve to have, I was sitting in $200 loss for like 2 weeks, you know, for a long time. I deserve to lose money on this trade. I am currently, I'm not looking at it right now, it's somewhere else in my room. I am currently about $240 in profit on this trade right now. Again, I should be in tremendous loss. You know, if I had bought an option contract or something like that, like a short date expiration option contract, I would have lost all my money and I would have been looking for a new setup, essentially. Whereas here, I was in loss that whole time and I just didn't panic. I slept like a baby that whole time because I wasn't concerned, because my analysis is solid. That's why you follow me on this channel, is because I understand what the technical analysis is telling me and I don't make up ridiculous claims, you know. And that allowed me to just stay calm. I added to the position a few times. I don't remember exactly where. It was more just based on the overnight hours than it was specifically key targets. I don't have a ton of money in that account. I think I only have like $1,000 in that account that I'm trading with until I feel really confident of my strategy, and then I'm going to be able to put more money into it. But at the moment, I am sticking with my mentality is what I want to look for is a reaction to either 80K or 83.5K. At that time, I will have to decide, do I close this trade in tremendous profit at that point? By that point, I'll be in more than 100% profit. I'm already very close to 100% profit. I think I'm at like 85% profit or something like that, which is fucking crazy. Again, on Bitcoin. I'm not trading fucking Zcash. I'm not trading, you know, Popcat or like some other, or Pengu or anything else random, you know, on the meme coins or option contracts or like the hot stock of the day. This is on Bitcoin. This is perpetual Nano BTC futures contracts on Coinbase at 10x leverage. You are able to take a 10% move on Bitcoin and make 100% on your money. Why would you want to trade other shit? Like, I don't understand. This is what I'm going to be trading for a very long time. If you have questions about that, hit me up on Threads. I will be opening up my membership group very shortly for these trades. There's going to be big changes happening in the next couple of weeks. I had to get taxes and everything else handled before I could really move forward with the books. I've written 2 books. If you've been following me for a while, you know I talk about them all the time and just have not released them because I had to take care of other things in my life. But I will be opening up that trading group soon. So if you're interested, leave a comment or hit me up on one of my social channels and I'll make sure that you get access to it. But basically, I'm just going to continue talking about the same strategy, which is, effectively speaking, I'm looking for breaks of the 4-hour Bollinger Band, either to the top or the bottom. To the bottom enforces a long trade, and a break of the top enforces a short trade. Now, the reason why I have this strategy is because after careful analysis of the last 4 months of trading, essentially, when we see a break, there is typically, I would say, about a 70 to 90% probability that the price will trend at least 1% in the opposite direction before doing whatever it's going to do next. So that does not mean that it will trend 1% and then continue in your favor, though a lot of times it does do that. It means that it will do 1% before it does something else. So in this particular instance, you would have had to take a short and very quickly get out of it if you were just thinking about it as a scalp, or you would have had to add to it here, which that would have been a clear instance to add to it, not to close it. And then you would get your more significant move here, which that's 25% on your money. That's a really good trade. So that's what we're looking for at the moment. I did not take this short. I am currently just focused on managing my perpetual position. I'm not trying to play every single trade setup. I do like that better, to be honest. I'm enjoying it more, just having long-term exposure on the perpetual side rather than trying to catch every single scalp trade. You have to be right way more often. Whereas again, I was fucking wrong for 3 weeks or longer. Actually, let me see how long I actually was in loss, because I'm really not paying attention. 32 days. I mean, technically I was in profit over here. So almost 4 weeks, basically 4 weeks that I was in loss, and I was not panicking, and I was sleeping like a little baby because I just wasn't concerned, because my analysis holds true as long as we're above this anchored VWAP line. And just in general, the history, everything else that I talked about in this video, there's nothing that leads me to believe that we are magically just going to continue to go up forever. What I believe is that we're probably going to go to one of these 2 lines, and then we're going to form resistance at that time. And that's likely when I will close my perpetual trade and probably open a short to the downside on my perpetual trade. Now, I could be wrong, again, like I said, and we could trend towards the upside, but there's very little in historical context that actually gives evidence for that. We don't have any evidence for that. So we would have to be setting a new paradigm, which is just that's not plan A for me. That's not what I assume is going to happen more likely than what always happens. What always happens is we see resistance form at a key psychological level that the market has previously tested. So what am I talking about? Let me go give you another example of this, and then we'll close up with the trades, and we'll move on with our lives. So very similar. This is 2021. Where do we drop down to? We drop down right in here to about 30K. Why is that important? Because in 2022, same instance, we rose up into March instead of April this time. We were above the weekly SMA, failed this Fibonacci pivot, started heading downward. Price went significantly below that point, that bottom in 2021, significantly below, and then the next year, it spent most of its time trying to reclaim that. Once it had reclaimed that as support, the price could then resume to the upside. So what does that mean for us currently? What that means is these 2025 lows that I just talked about earlier on in the video, we need to see them form as resistance, not support. Once they have formed as resistance, price will continue to fail downward until we get lower, I haven't talked about this in a long time, but the lowest I believe is between basically like 34 and 39K is the lowest that I can believe, you know. It may be more likely that we just see a tap of 44 and then we're done. But the lowest I personally can believe, based on my understanding of the chart, is somewhere between 34 and 39K. Just again, based on one, the amount of buyers in that region, but also just we would, in the same respect as we see this form as resistance initially, before we're able to flip it as support, it's the same as this. As when we're gonna come down here and test it, we need to see clear as day confirmation that that is support, baby. That is not resistance, and that is what I anticipate is going to happen this time if we do continue to see downside pressure. Is we see these levels form as resistance, which pushes us back down. If we see another retest of 64K, we're breaking it. I'm sorry, I know you don't want to hear that, but we're breaking it and we're going to the downside. And then again, that's what I would assume, is that we're going to see these levels need to be revisited and these guys are going to form as support, and then party on. You know, then it'll be towards the end of the year. It'll be right in time for JP Morgan Chase to send you a little email and a little pamphlet they're going to throw directly in the trash after you black out your name and your address. That's when they're going to be like, hey, remember stablecoins? Did you hear about stablecoins last year? Well, we're going to give you 10,000 stablecoins for every $10,000 of cash that you put in, you know. Or it won't be that crazy if they literally doubled your money. That would be insane. But that's the point, is that's when we're going to start seeing that, is Q4. They're really going to be like, oh, well, have you heard of stablecoins? Well, stablecoins are better than wire transfers and CDs for this, and this reason, you know. That's when we're going to see that really ramp up. After they have already made their partnership announcements over the summer, after the price of Bitcoin has continued to bleed and there's more uncertainty, you know, like that would be a full cycle. That's what we would anticipate to happen. So that really tracks a lot of the psychology as opposed to just purely the price action. Purely for price action, we've got to go off the anchored VWAPs. Like that really is what's going to tell us, is do we have a reaction to these levels or do we not care? Because the only other levels that are important in this region are basically every 2K. 78K is important, 80K is important, 82K is important, 84, 86, like right around those regions, you know? And the only thing that we can really go off of to give us like more specific levels for that, again, is the monthly closes, which are closer to 82.5, slightly higher than that at about 84. We got this guy over here, 87.5, 89.5, 90K. Like I said, it's going to be kind of choppy in this region, and we're just going to need to pay attention to what we actually have in front of us, which is the anchored VWAP, which there it's at 83.1. It's pretty much the same across timeframes for that specific one. It's like roughly 83 to 83.5K. And then same thing, in a best case scenario, we would see a rise and a break above that monthly SMA, which I don't think is going to happen personally. Like that's not my baseline belief. So those are the local levels that we want to pay attention to. I'll cover this on Sunday. If you are subscribed, you'll get it in your email on Monday, which will have the full update of where we closed in relation to the weekly SMA and the 76.2K pivot. Very, very important. In general, pretty bullish. Again, I'm very stoked. Being 85% up in profit after being like 85% in loss for 4 weeks is pretty crazy. You can't really do that with option contracts or short date expiration contracts. You can't even do that with futures contracts, quite frankly. If I had bought futures instead of perpetuals, I would have been fucked. I would have lost that money, you know. So Nano BTC perpetual contracts on Coinbase, love them. They're great. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment down below. I'll be back on Sunday. If you have any questions, let me know. All right. Have a great weekend, everybody.